Approximately 6,000 women in the United States reach menopause every single day, adding up to about 2 million women each year. Yet, despite this staggering number, only a small fraction are using hormone replacement therapy to manage their symptoms. In fact, research shows that the use of menopausal hormone therapy has plummeted from 26.9% to just 4.7% over the past 2 decades, with even lower rates among women under 52. This is happening while millions of women continue to suffer, often in silence. Some have been led to believe that menopause is just something they have to suck up. Others wear their struggle like a badge of honor, convinced they deserve a medal for toughing it out without HRT. And then there are those who simply don't realize how much better they could feel if they had the right information, support, and tools. Yet in 2024, it felt like the menopause movement was finally gaining momentum. We saw a menopause commercial during the Super Bowl. Celebrities started speaking up. Social media was buzzing with conversations that would have been unheard of just a few years ago. It truly seemed like we were turning a corner. But have we? Just yesterday, I was scrolling a menopause support group on Facebook. My first mistake. I should know better because I get very worked up when I look into these menopause support groups. And I found this post. Had a conversation with a female nurse practitioner today. She said that HRT exacerbates all cancer, and the only reasons it's prescribed is for vanity reasons. She said the only things it is proven to help with is vaginal dryness. It does nothing for anything else. She just graduated from nurse practitioner school after being a bedside nurse for years. She said all these menopause doctors are just making money off women and selling false hope. The human body, after a certain age, does not need these hormones, nor does it do any good to it besides for vaginal wetness. Just wanted to know your thoughts. I feel like a lot of this is true as far as the human female body not needing hormones after childbearing age. So while awareness is growing, ladies, we clearly have barely scratched the surface. This misinformation, the stigma, the lack of proper care, it's all still there. I get messages like this from my clients, from my members every single day. And that's exactly what we're diving into in today's conversation. Today, joining me are two of my favorite women, my Meno besties. When we first met, it felt like we had known each other forever. It was one of those instant connections where you think, oh, there you are, my people. And I couldn't be more thrilled to have them here for this roundtable conversation. Dr. Fiona Lovely is the host of Not Your Mother's Menopause and a powerhouse when it comes to brain health. She's on a mission to help women protect and optimize their cognitive function through menopause and beyond. Zora Benhamu, I think I screw up her name all the time, host of Hack My Age, is a biohacking queen, and a queen she is. She's all about using cutting edge science and lifestyle strategies to help women navigate menopause like total badasses. She's also got some fascinating insights from her recent hip replacement surgery that I can't wait for her to share. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on what's really happening in the menopause space. We're talking about the biggest myths, the frustrating gaps in care, and the symptoms that too many women don't even realize are menopause related. So without further ado, after that very long-winded intro, welcome my Meno besties. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, what an intro. That is fabulous. I think I'm so honored to know you. And Fiona, I swear when I heard that we're going to be doing this, I could feel my oxytocin rising. That's our bonding hormone. And we clearly can bond over a Zoom call. So thank you so much for having me.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you,
so happy
Karen.
to have you
Thanks for the
here.
beautiful intro.
Yes, I didn't realize I was going to get emotional, but
No, I
of
feel
course I
it.
do because I love you guys so much, and I'm just so blessed that I got to connect with you in this space, and we've been best buddies since. Zora and I have, and Fiona actually, we haven't met Zora in person yet because she lives in Spain, so it's a little bit more challenging. But Dr. Fiona and I were both Canadians, but we met each other down in the United States in December for a conference. So we got to hang out nonstop, 24/7. It seemed like, hey, Fiona, for 3 days
Yes, and
straight.
it wasn't enough, Karen. It wasn't
No, it
enough.
wasn't. Oh, so that post, as we know, shook us up a little bit, even though we see this all the time. It's just always still so surprising when I hear these things because I start to think, oh, we're getting somewhere. And everybody's talking about this. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm being naive. This this really we have a long ways to go. And the three of us, I feel are doing a really good job at spreading the word. We have some of the top midlife women's podcasts. And we are working tirelessly to get this information out there to the masses. And looking back at 2024, we did see some movement happening, but there's so many things though that are still so much misinformation, I guess, that is out there that we're seeing. And things like this woman's post, this comes from a nurse practitioner that just graduated from medical school. Does that not show how little the education is when it comes to menopause and perimenopause?
That's what really disturbed me to see, like,
Hmm.
she just graduated and what they haven't even touched the surface of what hormones can do, or they've taught the wrong information. That's very disturbing because I was hoping by now, with the movement that we're having, at least in the US, and I guess Canada as well, which is North America, you would think that there would start to rewrite the curriculums.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm a little bit more jaded about this. The truth is, the system teaches a protocol of judgment towards women that is based on our ability to be a receptacle for a penis and our ability to make a baby. And if you look at that post, it's real obvious. Vaginal dryness, vaginal wetness, as she referred to it, is the only thing it's good for? Oh, that's nice. So, okay, at least we have the acceptance beyond the time where we're reproducing. And we're now saying, okay, well, we may have women in their 60s, but we can still use them for sex as long as they've got a moist vagina.
I know.
Mhm.
And that's a really icky way to look at it. But the truth is, like, let's just bring it right down to the brass tacks here. Like, this is what it's about. We
Mhm.
have this internalized, paternalistic, and patriarchal system that infiltrates through all kinds of things, and including the schools. And I know I'm constantly seeing these kinds of things. I was in professional school 25 years ago. And let me tell you, I learned next to nothing about menopause other than at some point, I remember my endocrinology instructor saying that at some point a woman would just stop having her periods. And that was the end of the discussion.
Right.
Not recognizing that, this is 40% of our lives. Our lives will be in menopause. And so there's so much more to learn. And unfortunately, this nurse practitioner has been taught that judgment system, and she's too new at the job to see. And she probably isn't in her perimenopausal era yet because, it's that, I had a friend years ago tell me she is a midwife, and she said, being a midwife before I had my babies and being a midwife after I had my own babies, totally different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it. I know I had to go dark early, but listen, we could talk about what causes this problem. The truth is it's a social problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a thing that she said at the very end where I think it makes sense that after a certain age we don't need to have our hormones or something like that, right after
Yes. Yeah.
childbearing years.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, well, she's right. Like, we are programmed not to make hormones. because we are programmed to die. And so if that's natural, that's what we should be doing if you want to lead a natural menopause or post-menopause, and don't interfere with medicine, don't interfere with hormones. So if you want, that's why it may go, well, yeah, it makes sense. We were programmed that way. We also have to take in consideration, we were also programmed to have certain diseases and to die probably an earlier death than we want to. So, we can, or we have other options.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is we're living longer and longer. And as a hardcore biohacker that you are, Zora, you look at all the things that women are doing to biohack to stop the aging or slow down the aging process to stay as healthy as possible. So they're taking supplements, they're doing cold plunges, they're intermittent fasting, they're doing all the things, eating perfectly, exercising perfectly, and yet that's all okay, but taking the hormones isn't. It just, to me, it doesn't, those two things, when you really look at it, that doesn't actually add up. It's like, why is it okay that we can take a supplement to help slow the aging process down, but we can't take a body identical hormone that actually has been shown and proven and researched to be far more efficacious than a supplement for helping you to slow down the aging process. I mean, there is no supplement that's going to help reduce your risk of all causes of mortality by up to 30%, it's been shown. And this has been shown now in multiple studies, not just one, the WHI. It's been now shown in other huge studies how much it reduces our risk of cancer and Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, you know this, Fiona, with the
Osteoporosis.
brain
Yep.
health. There was a new
Mhm.
one that I just saw that came out, I think, by Dr. Mosconi
Appreciate
herself yesterday. She just posted a new research paper, I think, that she did. Did you see that,
I
Fiona?
haven't seen it. No,
Oh,
please
and
inform
well, it
me.
was about like hormone replacement therapy and Alzheimer's and dementia. And we know that it's protective of our brain. Do we have a drug for Alzheimer's
No.
or dementia? And I'm sorry, but if you got Alzheimer's or dementia, would you say to your doctor, like, don't give me any drug that's going to help slow down this brain disease because it's natural and I'm supposed to be aging?
Yeah. Yeah, there is not a drug for Alzheimer's and or dementia. It has been one of the greatest failures of big pharma in the last 50 years. They've been looking at drugs, doing trials, spending billions of dollars on it since the 80s, and none of them have given any kind of appropriate level of change, right? Maybe 2 to 3%. That's it.
Mhm.
So we don't have good answers for this. And, to speak to something you guys talked about a minute ago, in 1901, we lived to the age of 53. I think the average age a woman died was actually 51. Okay,
Menopause. When she
exactly.
hit
So
menopause.
we didn't get the experience of having 40% of our lives. Now, here's the thing about biology: our brains are evolving very, very quickly and can do so, but our physical bodies are limited by our lifespan. We can't, none of us are really using wisdom teeth anymore. Eventually, we take them out. Eventually, we'll evolve them out.
Mhm.
Okay. So the same thing is happening here. We're trying to manage the physical body that cannot as easily or quickly keep up with how our brains are evolving, how information is evolving, how our research and knowledge about things is evolving. So, not that long ago, we didn't live past menopause. So,
Mhm.
when people say, well, vanity is the reason why you take hormones, horseshit. That's horseshit. Look at the research. Clearly, the school she went to was not evidence informed,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
the evidence they were using was long outdated.
And I will actually say, one of the reasons I do use HRT actually is for vanity. I will put that in there. And what is wrong with that? What woman on the face of the planet doesn't want to age slowly and keep her youthful skin and hair and nails and bones, like
Yes.
muscles, metabolism, all things that quickly go south when we lose our hormones. So, yeah, I will use hormones for vanity reasons. Damn right. I'd much rather do that than get plastic surgery. Call me
Well, imagine
crazy.
the woman posting that, and she asked, and the nurse practitioner just shamed her for having,
Absolutely.
perhaps, I don't know, we don't know, but if you are thinking about vanity, shame on you.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Yeah.
Not right.
So she doesn't
It
care about her looks. That's what I'd like to ask her.
Let her care
it's
whatever
internal.
she wants to care about. Like it's again, she was had it here had her. She obviously had her own agenda, and that's the problem with I think doctors who are helping women through menopause who don't have the right training. They have their opinion, whether it's anti HRT or pro HRT. I think women should have shared informed decision making, and let them decide if they want to go hormones or not go hormones or whatever it is. So I think too many doctors out there, this is what I'm hearing, at least through my community, they have their own opinion and they push it on their
Yeah.
patients. And not that they're good doctors out there, but it seems that there's too much of that going on.
And isn't it interesting that only happens in women's health? Whether we're talking about a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy or to pursue healthcare for vanity reasons or to take the GLP-1 agonist medications for weight loss. Now she's made to feel shame about that. I mean,
Mhm.
this is internalized sexism within our society. It is a systemic problem.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you two seeing in your menopause space as far as where the gaps are? Like what are we really lacking right now? Maybe let's start with you, Zora. What are you seeing that just you're hearing your members, your followers still talking about that they're not getting help with, or that there's misinformation about?
Well, I am going to take a little bit of a global perspective because I'm
Yeah,
a nomad. I
great.
interview women all over the world on their menopause experience, at least the ones who will speak to me. But talk to many women who do not want to be on camera and they do share their experience. And so the places I've been to, I've interviewed over 200 women. I've been to Asia and with Thailand and Vietnam. I've gone to Hong Kong and France and Spain and the US, everywhere. That not everywhere, but these are the sort of the general places that I've been to, and I find that there's the big gap still is that we have to suffer. Too many women have no clue that we have solutions, and like you said in your intro, it's they're wearing a badge of honor because they've suffered and stuck it out, and then there's women who have really no clue that they have no access, say, to medical care that I think is almost medical care, period. And so they don't even think about that they can ask a doctor for options, and I think that's where the big gap still is. And you and I and Fiona, and probably women who are listening to this episode, is we kind of do live in a bubble. When we have this information, we're searching for it, and we get it. It seems like everybody knows now about menopause and perimenopause. And I'm sure, I was going through perimenopause. I didn't even know the word existed. Like,
Yeah.
talking about it. So I think that the biggest gap that I see, at least globally, is that there's still lack of information and lack of knowledge, and then lack of finding a doctor. So a lot of women who come into me in my community, whether they are from the Western world or not, they still struggle to find a doctor who will guide them through menopause and help them with hormones, because it's just one after the other, and that's why I send them to you in the end. It's like, okay, let's just go see Karen. She'll sort you out.
I was looking yesterday online for an Instagram post that I was creating about menopause around the world. And of course, I was thinking about you and the interviews that you do with all of these women, which I so appreciate. And something that I've seen lately online, I've seen certain practitioners say that women in Asia don't get menopause, or very little menopause symptoms, that they like transition super easily. And then why are they not suffering, but yet Western women are? And when I actually looked at the numbers, it said that Asian women have less hot flashes, report less hot flashes than American women. American women they have like 30 to 50% of them will say that they get hot flashes. Rather, Asian women, it's like less than 5%, but then it swaps, and Asian women complain the most about or report the most about joint pain, which I thought
Hmm.
was very interesting. And North American women have a lot, ours is like 5% of women or something like this that will complain about joint pain, which I think is a lot more than that. But and then the Asian women, it was like 30%. So they they seem to be experiencing just as much, maybe a little bit less, because I don't think that they have the obesity rates maybe that we don't. Like North Americans are becoming more and more sick, and we know that, everybody's got type 2 diabetes and this is just on the rise. And so we are a less healthy society than I think Asian people are. They don't have the obesity rates that we have. And I think that obviously contributes to some of the menopausal and perimenopausal symptoms. Absolutely. But with that, I'm going to say you could be the healthiest person in the entire world and still suffer absolutely immensely from perimenopause and menopause symptoms. So I don't want you to think that, oh, it's because I'm unhealthy or whatever. I just think that it can exacerbate the symptoms. What do you think? Because you're the one that's over there talking to these women. Do you see that they have just as much?
Well, you mentioned, and I've read studies as well on Asian women, and they report fewer symptoms, right? And we have to keep
Right.
in mind sometimes in this some of these cultures, because Asia is a big word, right? I mean, it's many cultures
Yes, yes,
involved
yes.
there. But when I used to live in Hong Kong, and my experience was you every time I asked somebody for something or do something, the answer was always yes. It was like they don't know how to say no. They it was, even though they're uncomfortable and it was hard. So sometimes you wonder if it's because of society reasons, maybe they're not complaining, right? They're not saying anything because it's a cultural thing. Again, I don't really know, but I'm just
Mhm.
kind of wondering. They report fewer hot flashes, but in my interviews, I don't see anyone suffering any less in terms of physical, vasomotor symptoms or joint pain or things like that, weight gain. They do have, at least in again through my interviews, okay, we're all having some things, but what's the difference I see in Asian versus Western is that they have a bit of a different attitude. And again, it's sort of like I shouldn't be complaining kind of a thing. And
Mhm.
I've got bigger problems. I got bigger fish to fry. And it's not like, why are you even asking me this? Especially if it's somebody who's selling fruit on the street or somebody who's in a completely different socioeconomic class. And so I've had this with Western women who've suffered all their lives through some disease. Okay. They've hurt so bad. They lived with chronic pain, or that when they get to menopause, it's relatively small. It's a relatively less pain than the pain that they've been going through. So I think sometimes it's all sort of cultural, sort of relative. But I would say that they do say that as long at least the research has shown that is if you have a supportive community, if you have people around you, then you may have a smoother transition, or may make things easier, which I
Mhm.
think is across the board, very very global, and that's not a it's a certain cultural thing, but I think that is very very true. So but I think there's just not enough research to really make certain conclusions, because kind of
Right.
like me, with people who stop and talk to me in the street or is even open to talking about it, has to be a certain type, and maybe we're not looking at all the factors.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Fiona, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think, well,
I know
just
you've
to
been on
answer,
fire about the bones lately.
oh, yes, I am. Yes, I am. When
Both of
we
you
want to
have
talk,
actually.
yes, when we want to talk musculoskeletal syndrome and menopause, LFG. Anyways, I agree with Zora when it comes to the Asian community in particular. There's a real cultural thing there that really women are sort of quiet, demure, do not complain, bigger fish to fry, as you said. And so it's hard to sometimes account for that, to take an anthropological view of it, to account for that when we're looking at the research of who suffers most. But the other thing I think of too is that why are we still using hot flashes as the hallmark of menopause? Like our own here in Canada, homegrown research from Andrea Donsky says hot flashes are in the top 10, but they're actually number 9,
Mm.
right? I've never had a hot flash. Hopefully it stays that way.
Oh
So,
my God.
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of women who say they've got every other symptom on the sun, but no hot
but
flash.
not that. And what the North American Menopause Society says, we only give hormones to women who are in menopause because they have hot flashes. So until they have a hot flash, they're not in menopause. So you can see this is the come from the place that is the certified menopause experts. This is still what they're teaching to this day. And so you can see some of the big influencers, names will not be named in this moment, from me, anyways, that say this is the only way to do it. Everything else is just money grabbing and not taking care of, or not being evidence based. Ooh, evidence based gets under my skin. Evidence informed, yes, please. Evidence based means you're ignoring the magic and mystery of a woman's body, which is what we have done for millennia.
Hmm.
Beside the point. To answer the question about what I'm seeing, um, I think what I'm really very acutely aware of right now is the massive gaps in the ability to recognize and prescribe hormones to women far earlier than,
Hmm.
I mean, we can talk about it being prescribed to women in menopause, fine. But what we know, all of us here in this room, know is that we want to get the hormones in the earlier, the better. The better our brains are better off if we never register the drop in estrogen. Now,
Hmm.
we have these cycles, right? So we're going to go up, we're going to go down. So if anybody is saying to you, hormones are unsafe, give me a break. Women have had hormones all of our lives up to this point, right? So, sure, we can have the discussion about what's the appropriate and safe way to actually take hormones. That's fine. That's just been an issue of um, pharmaceutical companies making something patentable so that they can sell it, right? So
Hmm.
that's that discussion of bioidentical. I don't know why we vilified that word. It makes sense to me, etc. But what I'm really seeing is those gaps in what the prescribers could do to help women's health overall, brain, bones, and heart, the very least, not including things like libido and mental health and vanity. Absolutely. I mean, I will take all the creams. If the creams will help the turkey waddles stay at bay,
Right?
ladies, I
I
shall
slather my
bathe.
neck in my estrogen cream.
I shall bathe in the damn stuff. It's fine. I think actually, I was saying this to a colleague yesterday. I think our generation will be the hottest, sexiest women in history because we are demanding that we will not go down to frailty. And I think that's
Hmm.
a really important thing. And yeah, hell yeah, that means looking good while we're doing it.
Yeah, on the inside and the outside. Yeah, so that is what I am seeing as well, Fiona, and it's been what I've been most passionate about all of 2024 and now into 2025 is that women need to get this information that it's perimenopause. It's perimenopause where we're seeing the really harsh symptoms arise. Menopause, it actually does seem like a lot of the symptoms calm down for a lot of women once they actually lose their period. It's like, okay, now you were up here and now you're down here, but at least it's just like straight across, you're kind of riding it along. Rather, perimenopause, we see these extremes, ups and downs, and then some of it just falls off a cliff for some women. They, I love that the research says me and my group the other day, we were laughing about this because the research says that on average, women will gain 1 pound a year in menopause. And I was like, where is this research coming from? All of my ladies just started laughing and they're just shaking their head like, what? Yeah, I wish it was 1 pound a year. Like personally, I gained 15 pounds within like 2 months. I have talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of women at this point who have told me like they had never suffered with weight their entire life until they reached perimenopause.
Yeah.
And in 1 year, it was like 30 pounds. I've talked to women 50 pounds, 20 pounds, where they're just like, what? And they didn't change anything.
Yeah.
It's perimenopause can be 10 years, even longer than 10 years. We're starting to see it lasting longer and longer, starting earlier and earlier. And doctors refuse, if they even will be open to HRT, they will refuse to give a woman HRT who still has a menstrual cycle.
This is
But they
stupid.
will give them birth control.
It is. Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
know. Give me
Yeah.
a break. Oh, that would makes me mad.
That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense to me whatsoever. And when you bring this point up to a woman, when I share the same story, just like you did, Karen, to some women who are scared, who are not sure, not understand, and I ask them, "Have you taken birth control?" "Oh yeah." "Well, there was any question, any problem taking?" "Oh no." "But do you realize that's synthetic and that's very high doses of hormones? Do you realize this is not natural? This is not what you're trying to do. Your objective is something else." "Oh, well, did your doctor have any issues?" "No, no, my doctor gave me birth control." I mean, who here has not at least listening, has not been on birth control? It's very rare, and or even thought twice about it, or had a doctor who thought twice about it. No, but when it comes to HRT, and that really flips the switch a lot. I use that dialogue very often because we didn't know, right? We didn't know. I was the same thing. I took birth control. I had no
Yep.
idea. And then I was also questioning. At the very beginning, when always my mother died of breast cancer. I was like, oh, I'm not ever going to touch my hormones. I'm not going to mess with my hormones. Well, I didn't need to when I was young, but now I know better. So I think that's just thanks to all the work that we're all doing is just do your homework and you'll come to your own conclusion.
Zora, do you think that the hip surgery, it was osteoarthritis?
Yeah.
Do you think it had anything to do with being on birth control?
I never thought of that.
Mhm.
Actually, I wasn't on it too long. I was less
Okay.
than 10 years. So
Less
no,
than 10 years?
yeah,
That's a
less than
long time. How many years?
probably about 7. I mean, on and off because I had pregnancies in between, but probably about 7.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
it's
it's
really
it's
it's shutting down your hormones, which help with bones.
yeah. But I wanted good skin. That's why I started taking it. I wanted the skin, but that's why my doctor gave it to me in the beginning. And also, then I had a boyfriend. Then I was like, okay, but yeah, and well, regret it, but I didn't know. But I didn't know better.
Of
But
course not. Yeah.
I don't know. It could have contributed. It's possible. I think part of my, what I've concluded as well, I was on hormone therapy when I was 50. I'm 54 now. I just had my surgeries. So I think I was on baby dosages when I first started hormones. It was just vaginal estriol. That's how I
Right.
started because my
Yeah.
doctor
Yeah.
didn't know and I didn't
Right.
really
Because
know
it's
about
only
it.
about the vagina.
Yeah, exactly.
See? It's
Yeah,
a
right.
receptacle, a,
Point
a moist
proven.
tube. It's a moist tube for a penis. If we keep control of that, then we'll be fine. Women will be fine. The men will be fine. Everything will be fine. Sorry.
It's true.
It's true. Yeah, I think that definitely could have contributed. And I noticed, yes, the osteoarthritis, even though I had it for years, I wasn't really sure what it even was because it wasn't that bad, a little bit of joint pain. And if I knew back then in perimenopause that I could take some hormones to help with this, I would have done it. But
Mhm.
I feel that it was menopause and the lack of hormones and having two baby dosages accelerated the process, because I did notice the last 2 years, I was like, my biohacks are not working. They were working great before.
Hmm.
Now they weren't working. And that's when the end I said, look, there's nothing else I can do right now. And I think it's too late, but I would definitely, when anyone who's got some joint pain, and too many women in my community, I hear so often the joint pain moment they
Hmm.
get on HRT. Wow, I can move my arm again, full
Yeah.
range, or the joints and my fingers are just, now I'm free. And I think I wish that was me. I
Yeah.
wish it was too late, but I think that's always the low hanging fruit, is joint, and joint pain is, I think, one of those things that women very rarely associate with menopause. And
Yes.
it is such a no brainer, I think, for
And
me.
perimenopause. Oh my gosh.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
hear it
I
all
mean,
the time.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I was
good.
37. I had frozen shoulder. So there you go. That was the start. Same year, I stopped sleeping through the night. Okay.
Oh, wow.
I'm over here being the menopause expert. I didn't realize that was perimenopause until I was somewhere in my 40s and went, "Oh shit, that was the start of it."
Yeah.
Yeah. The
So,
typical age of starting to lose the progesterone.
yep,
Mm.
yep, yep, absolutely. So, to speak to the joint situation for a second, I think it's helpful to know that estrogen is a lubricator, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about or the vagina or the shoulder capsule or the skin, exactly, all of those things. And so when we lose the estradiol, that's when things start to dry, if you will. And when joints get dry, when we lose the synovial fluid, that's when we start to have the joint pain. And Karen, actually, both of you, I totally agree with. This is one of those underreported things. What did you say? It was 5% of women reported joint pain? No way. It's way more than that. But Zora, you're right. Women are not connecting this to perimenopause. So just last week, I put a video up on TikTok about the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, about the kinds of pain that you have. Typically, we see frozen shoulder, plantar fasciitis, and gluteal tendinopathies. What that is a pain in the butt. Literally, your glutes hurt, your
Oh,
hips hurt,
interesting.
your SI joints hurt. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and we know women who have had multiple pregnancies are more likely to have SI joint problems. Okay. So, now, was this ever mentioned in my professional training 25 years ago? No. And the term arthritis of menopause is 100 years old in the medical research. And some of the best research that we have till recently is 30 years old. So I should have been taught this as somebody who was trained to be an expert of joints and spine. Anyways, beside the point. I think this is terribly underreported. When I made the post on TikTok, you know how TikTok is, guys. You put stuff there and you're like, oh yeah, that's cute. Like, 300 people looked at it cute. I got like there's 30,000 views in 36 hours.
You're
And
kidding.
no, you got to go look at the comments, you guys. Like I'm sitting here over here going, how can I help in a much bigger way?
Yeah.
Because it's literally women saying, are you telling me that the back pain I've had for 10 years is connected to my hormones?
Mhm.
My joints hurt until I started taking HRT, but I had not connected those two things. My doctor says I'm not a candidate for knee surgery, but tells me I have to lose 50 pounds until I can be a candidate for knee surgery. And you're saying that hormones can help me? Like, it's bananas. There's a huge blind spot here. And so when I recently heard, and I know I said this to both of you, Dr. Vonda Wright on the Mel Robbins podcast, when I heard her talking about this, I went into the research and looked at it. And really what it did was made me angry
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
this is not common knowledge for people in the profession of taking care of people in pain. Karen, this has
Hmm.
been you too in your lifetime as
Hmm.
well. How
Hmm.
is it that we did not know this?
Hmm.
Why were we not taught this? So I think there's Dr. Wright's material is amazing. Whoever's listening, please go and listen to that podcast. She's been on several others as well. And she's got a book coming later this year, which I'm quite excited to hear about. But
We did
um,
an episode with her 2 years ago about frozen
say more.
shoulder.
Yes.
And it's now I think since she's grown so much, now it's our number one most listened to episode. Karen's, yours was actually for number one for a long time. And then I think Vonda just exploded, even though it was an old episode, but she made that connection. And it's only now that it seems that that episode's really gaining traction.
So the word's getting out then about this, which is amazing. And Fiona, you're gonna have to start beating that drum louder, I think, because obviously women want this information and
Yes.
it's lacking.
And we get the pinch point again of women need hormones for joint health, and there's not enough prescribers willing to do it. So,
Mhm.
how do we fix that problem? How do we fix that problem?
Yeah, because
Not
what do we,
once was I ever a doctor I've seen for my joints ever talk about
no,
hormones or menopause or perimenopause, or maybe this is something, or never. 30
no.
years. I've had my knee, I've had other issues, but it's like, wow, never.
And
Yeah.
what's interesting is there is research looking at female athletes, how we are more likely to be injured, especially knee injuries, in the luteal phase of our cycle because we have that ligament laxity that happens with progesterone. We know that well from third trimester of pregnancy.
Mhm.
Absolutely what happened to me when I tore my ACL skiing and I was in that luteal phase.
So we should really be calculating these
I
things
know.
before we go on the ski hill. If you're follicular, ladies, go.
Yes.
If you've had your period but you haven't yet ovulated, go and do the high risk things. If you've ovulated but you haven't had your period yet, sister, stay off the ski hill.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those places where research can really continue and develop is and thankfully it's women like Lisa Mosconi and Dr. Vonda Wright who are doing this research for us. It's our
Mhm.
women doing things for us. I mean,
Mhm.
Dr. Mosconi's story is so interesting. She, had a grandmother with Alzheimer's, and that's what was the flashpoint for her. She wanted to find out how women's brains ended up with Alzheimer's when men's didn't seem to at the same rate. And that's how she started her academic career. So, ultimately, when I'm talking about the brain, I'm thinking about both my mother and my grandmother. My mother with dementia, my grandmother with Alzheimer's. I want to
Mhm.
protect my own brain. I
Mhm.
just happen to learn the things I need to protect my own brain, and I share it with my patients and my listeners.
Mhm.
So I think having a heart in the research is a really important factor.
I think so too. And I think that even though we've talked a lot about how it's okay to give a woman hormones if she's got vaginal dryness, over 50% of women will experience some sort of vaginal atrophy, vaginal dryness. And this is not nice, let me tell you. I've talked to women that have broken down in tears to tell me that they have not had sex with their partner for years because the last time they did, they tore. And so, although doctors may be willing, some of them, to give hormone replacement therapy just for the vagina, actually, most women are not being treated properly for vaginal dryness and vaginal atrophy, nor are they being treated for things like mental health in perimenopause and menopause. They are being put on antidepressants and anxiety medication when they've never had a depressive episode ever in their life up until this time. And then suddenly, oh, well, here's your antidepressant. Not let's look at your hormones, which drive these neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
There's so much disconnect here with some things that are so drastically affecting women's lives. Women that their vagina unfortunately is atrophied, that it's closed. I've had a woman who's told me that. She's like, it's done. The door's closed. Like nothing's getting in there.
Mhm.
Women that can't have hard troubles walking and sitting because it's so painful. Why
Vaginal
are
pro.
these women not being, yeah, the vaginal prolapse? Why are these women not being treated?
Yeah.
This is insane. If this was a man's problem, it would be like, oh my God, let me
Yeah.
get you like a million different things for your penis. God forbid it doesn't work. You know?
Well, or Or lichen sclerosis, that's another thing we're learning about. And why is
Yeah.
that not being treated well? Or HS, like there's just so many things related to vulval vaginal health that have been ignored. Another blind spot that have just been ignored. Basically, money and research in women's health goes to obstetrics and to gynecology around reproduction.
Mhm.
Mhm. And yet that's where women go to, like their gynecologist. They all think that, okay, well, I'm not going to see my MD. I'm going to do better. I'm going to go see my gynecologist
Mhm.
about my perimenopausal or menopausal symptoms. I had a client recently who said she went in for her yearly pap test and she had the gown on and she went into the doctor's office and the doctor comes in, female doctor, and she said, I'd like to talk to you actually while I'm here about hormone replacement therapy. And the doctor said, put your clothes back on. I'm not here to help you with your HRT. You're going to have to go elsewhere, and walked out the door.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, wow. That's so
Yeah.
depressing.
Yeah.
It is. Now,
Yeah.
we should probably end on a high note. That that we are helping people. At least these people are coming now to us. This is how we know some of these stories, right? Is they shared them with us, which means they found proper help, which I think is very important for women to hear is that there is help to be had out there. They're listening to these podcasts of ours, they're educating themselves, and we do have a rise of women who are taking back the control on for their health, and it's why they listen to podcasts is to educate themselves.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And we still have a lot of work to do. I think it's it's quite obvious, but I think this generation is confused. We are the generation of confused women because they'll hear you, they'll hear me, they hear something from their doctor and something from their friend, and then they'll read an article and we're all saying different things. I mean, not the three of us, but all the other people. So it's very confusing. And I'm
Mhm.
hoping that the next generation will have a lot more clarity on where to go and how to do it. Hopefully, more doctors will be trained in doing this. But right now, that's why I like the biohacking piece because biohacking means you're taking responsibility for your own health. You're your own health advocate, and you are going to do a little experiment on yourself. You have to be willing that's your job, and you can decide. Well, I'm going to try hormone therapy, or I'm going to try this new diet, or I'm going to try this new supplement or peptide, or whatever it is that you guys want to try. You're the N of one experiment, and when it comes to hormone therapy, we're all different, right? We all know there's no one size fits all. So you're kind of forced to be a biohacker, put your hat on and figure this out. So that's listening to this podcast already is part of the puzzle. And then you just go out and say, let's see what happens.
Mhm. Fiona, parting words.
Stay hopeful and educate yourself, as Zora has said. That's really important. But being able to advocate for yourself when you go to your doctor, I say to my patients all the time, be the squeaky wheel. Be the guy that shows up saying, hey, am I a candidate yet? Am I a candidate yet? And what you're doing by asking that question is you're getting the power back to the doctor and say, am I a candidate for HRT? And if the answer is no, then you need to ask why. Because sometimes, most of the time, it's just a spot where the doctor can learn more and needs to learn more. And the more of us that go to our GPs and say, I need help, figure it out, the more the GPs, hopefully, in my mind, this is how it works, will say, there's really something here I need to look. So stay hopeful. Listen to all of us. We've all been through our own journey. Uh, you know, for me, I know it's been a very personal journey all the way along. The reason I'm even talking about women's health is has been my own journey as well. And so we're just taking people along what we learn. And Zora, I love what you said about it being, the biohacking thing kind of gives you a chance, an excuse, because sometimes we need that, an excuse to take care of ourselves and advocate for ourselves. And I do also believe that the fuss that us Gen Xers are making, because we're not ones to go quietly into the night, is going to make it a lot smoother, easier and better understood for the younger generations, for sure.
Mhm. And I'm going to add that I asked for everybody's help because this is something that needs to get out there to the masses. When we're looking at, what was it, 6 million a year? I can't even remember my own numbers now that are going into menopause, and only less than 10% of us are actually on HRT. So you think about the millions of women that have no clue. They aren't listening to podcasts. They aren't advocating for themselves. They have no idea what their options are. And some of them are suffering immensely. Immensely. We know suicide rates are highest amongst women from the ages of 45, I think it is, till 62. Like, that's
Correct.
not a coincidence.
Mm-mm.
That's awful. Absolutely awful. And this is saying that women are not getting this information. They're not getting the help that they need. Not saying that that's all the reasons for somebody would take their own life. I'm not saying that, but that's a big warning sign to us that we need to take better care of women,
Mhm.
and we need everybody's help. And so, what you, the listener, can be doing, sharing this information, number one, with your daughters and granddaughters. I just had my daughters, her and her three 18-year-old girlfriends were here over the weekend. And I talked to them about birth control. And I said, did you guys understand that birth control? And I went through the side effects of birth control, and none of them were on it. But, we went into, and I just educated them. I said, I'm not telling you not to take it, but you are not being told this information. And then I was talking about, what I do for a living and how I'm trying to educate women on this time period that they all need to know about as well. And so talk to your daughters about this. Tell them what you're going through as a perimenopausal or menopausal woman. Don't just hide in shame and not talk about your emotions. Tell them, oh my gosh, I'm having a hot flash right now, or I'm having this, or I'm having that. Like, I wish my mother would have educated me about this because, like you, Fiona, I was like, perimenopause, like what, maybe some hot flashes for a few months and then I'm going to be menopausal and all will be well.
I
Not
wish.
close at all, people. I feel like I went through hell, and so I just feel like education is key, and we have to be passing this information down to the women coming up behind us. We have to talk about it with our friends and our community. We have to find community in this space, and maybe not on Facebook, people, because I tell you, I don't go into those Facebook groups usually for a reason, and that's because it's hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of women that don't know what their options are and are just talking about how much they're suffering. And I just want to reach out to all of them and shake them and be like, listen to my podcast, educate yourself. You have options. You could feel so amazing right now. But I love what you said, Fiona. And this next, for some of us, this can be when we do feel and look our best. And I mean, I think now I look back at where I was at 42, I'm almost 50. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel better. I look better. I'm like, I'm just way better off now than I was almost 10 years ago. And that's what we should be saying, is we should be like, oh my God, look at me go. Like, look at me taking on this perimenopause and menopause. I'm a badass, just like Zora. Anyways, ladies, thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. It wasn't long enough, but Dr. Fiona has to go. She's got a life outside of her
You
menopause
imagine?
besties, which we
Thank
really
you,
should have
Karen.
like blocked out 4 hours, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
We need a 4 hour episode.
We
Yeah.
do. Anytime, anytime, ladies. Thank you so much. I love you both. And thank you for everything that you're doing in this space.
Oh,
Thank you,
thank you
Karen.
so much for everything, for getting this podcast together. It's thanks to you. Appreciate it.
Love you.